Part 54. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 532. Let's fight. As if he was cheering himself up, Wang Ling roared loudly during the run and continued to run at a speed 3 or 4 times that of a 100-meter race. Not to be outdone, the two roadblocks rushed forward. After 2 more laps, they finally succeeded in overtaking Wang Ling by a full lap. After being exposed to the primary physical fitness enhancer, Wang Ling began to gradually take off in the world of Red Alert. It can be said that he met gods and killed gods, met Buddhas and killed Buddhas. In less than a year, he completed the life of an ordinary person. An improvement that is difficult to achieve. After the intermediate level of strengthening, his body became like a monster. No one has ever been able to beat him in terms of physical fitness. Even if he is a real monster orc, Wang Ling dares to go head to head. But now, his most proud physical ability has been suppressed by others. Although the 2 stumbling blocks themselves were suspected of cheating and the competition with Wang Ling was very unfair, Wang Ling still couldn't swallow this breath. Looking at the 2 figures who were leading a full circle, with this unwillingness, Wang Ling almost gritted his teeth and ran, 1 lap, and another lap, and time also passed quietly in the process. 1 minute. 1 minute, another minute. Whoosh. 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 At this time, Wang Ling and the 2 roadblocks were still running fast, but after running for so long, the other 17 people were gradually exhausted physically, and some people kept falling behind. After a few more minutes, someone finally couldn't hold on anymore and suddenly fell to the ground, gasping for air and not wanting to move anymore. And his fall seemed to have a chain effect. The elite soldiers who were struggling to persevere around him also fell one after another, and they seemed to have reached their limit. However, Wang Ling and the 2 roadblocks were still going on. It happened that Wang Ling had already run to this area again and finally noticed the situation of the other people in the 5th group. As he ran, he gritted his teeth and shouted, "Keep going. If you don't want to be eliminated, keep going. Don't be looked down upon." Whizzing. Just after he shouted these words, behind him, the 2 blockers overtook him again, leading him by 2 full laps. Depend on. Wang Ling was so angry that he didn't have time to encourage the others too much, so he gritted his teeth and continued chasing. After the 3 of them ran away again, the remaining 17 people finally forced themselves to support their tired bodies and gradually stood up, but without exception, these people were breathing heavily. After glancing at the 3 desperate figures, one of them finally looked away. "Run. Keep running. Huh. Huh. Those 3 perverts can persist at such a fast speed. Us, we can rely on what can't you hold on to?" After saying that, he ignored others, gritted his teeth and continued running on the track. Really, hoo-hoo. Why are everyone working so hard? There is no other way. If you don't work hard, then we will be eliminated. Instead of being eliminated, why don't you give it a try? Yes, it belongs to his uncle. Hoo-hoo. We've come here, we can't just give up. Go on, run. Run. In just a few dozen seconds, this group of soldiers experienced a series of fierce battles in their hearts. In the end, the word persistence gained the upper hand and continued running. Whoosh. 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 Those 3 perverts now completely ignored the mentality and state of these soldiers. They competed with each other, ran desperately, surpassed them in circles and circles, and constantly exerted strong psychological pressure on them. However, this group of people have long been accustomed to this kind of pressure. They do not seek to win the final victory, but at least persist in this level. Even if they use all their strength, they must persist, and even if they break their teeth, they must force it. Swallow it into your stomach. This group of people had already reached their limit. They were running with a trembling posture. Wang Ling and the other three rushed past wildly, and the strong wind they brought could even knock down many people. But this group of people didn't care, got up, and continued running. Circle, circle, and circle, dragging their tired bodies, these soldiers persisted for 3 or 4 more minutes, draining almost all their potential. Finally, they could no longer muster any strength, and they all fell to the ground tired, ending the test. The corresponding staff hurried forward and helped the 17 people to the edge of the playground, where they rested with other competitors who had finished the test beforehand, and continued to watch the remaining tests. Now, there are only 3 people left on the track, Wang Ling and the 2 roadblocks. These 3 people are said to be human beings because they have human appearances. In fact, some people now believe that they are monsters. Their own speed was 3 or 4 times that of other competitors, but after all the other competitors collapsed from exhaustion, these 3 monsters still maintained that high speed and continued to run wildly. Everyone watching was amazed. Whoosh! 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 Without the 17 make-up numbers, now the 3 of them are naturally the focus of the audience. However, as the parties involved, these 3 people seemed to have no idea that Wang Ling was completely committed and wanted to surpass these 2 blockers, and the 2 blockers also wanted to run as fast as possible to leave Wang Ling far behind. In this way, the 3 of them chased each other and ran rapidly for 5 or 6 minutes. Wang Ling was overtaken by 2 roadblocks again and trailed them for a full 3 laps. Damn it, damn it, damn it. This scene made Wang Ling a little angry. He tried to force himself to speed up even more. Boom. But at this moment, his heart, which was beating rapidly due to strenuous activity, was now trembling even more. This tremor doesn't matter, the meaning it represents is a bit tragic. Wang Ling's physical energy is exhausted. The effect of body strengthening in the different dimensional system can be said to be immediate, but this kind of strengthening is not perfect and has obvious disadvantages. Indeed, whether it is primary enhancement or intermediate enhancement, it can give people the most significant improvement, and even strengthen it to the point of becoming a monster. However, in order to pursue the most obvious effect, the strengthening agent also squeezed out the potential of the injector at the same time, bursting out all its potential within this period of time. However, after the explosion was completed and the physical energy was exhausted, its potential it will also lead to exhaustion. Normal people can persevere through hardships, but strengtheners cannot do it at all. It can be said that they fall from the top to the bottom almost in an instant. Boom. Now, Wang Ling was facing this state. As his heart trembled violently, Wang Ling's body, which was originally full of strength and motivation, seemed to be empty for a moment, and his feet felt a little empty. However, while he was running at super high speed, the powerful inertial force still existed. As a result, his poor body was unable to withstand the inertial force. His whole body flew forward for a certain distance and fell hard to the ground. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 533. Boom. It can be imagined how fast Wang Ling was running before and how fierce his momentum was. The fall due to inertia was not the end. After the fall, he even slid forward nearly 10 meters under the speed of inertia. It's time to stop? Although his physical energy was exhausted, the hardness of his body was still at the monster level. However, after sliding nearly 10 meters, some blood stains appeared on his face, which was particularly eye-catching. Wow! And his fall caused a sensation, and all the competitors watching were in an uproar. These people had been helped to the edge of the playground due to exhaustion of physical energy, but after such a long rest, they had recovered some strength. As a result, Wang Ling suddenly fell down, and many people couldn't help but scream in surprise. Why did he collapse like this suddenly? Yes, he fell so suddenly. He was running well and fast before, but he suddenly fell down. What happened? Even if he is tired, He shouldn't be so tired all of a sudden, right? Do you think he tripped? It seems possible. I don't believe he could be so tired all of a sudden. Hey, hey. Those two can't do it either. This group of competitors had never been injected with systemic enhancers and did not understand the disadvantages of enhancers. They did not understand Wang Ling's sudden collapse due to exhaustion of physical energy. Many people even thought that he accidentally tripped. One kick. However, what happened next made them change their minds, because Wang Ling was not the only one who was injected with the intermediate enhancer, but also the other two roadblocks. Although they were temporarily created by the system, the disadvantages of the enhancers were also reflected in them. Relying on the experience enhancement of some more troops than Wang Ling, these two blockers ran quickly for half a circle after Wang Ling fell. And then unexpectedly made almost the same action as Wang Ling, and suddenly fell down, sliding forward more than 10 meters at the speed of inertia. Wow! They both fell down too. Didn't they all stumble? Impossible. This is such a coincidence. It would be fine if number 100 tripped, but the two of them did the same, and tripped almost at the same time. This coincidence is too much. Yes, it's too coincidental to be normal. They may be really exhausted and can't hold on anymore. My dear, can't you hold on anymore? These three perverts can run so fast and for so long, it's so scary. Yeah, even though he fell too suddenly, it's still over. In a flurry of words, the group of competitors finally confirmed that Wang Ling and the other two stumbling blocks collapsed due to exhaustion of physical energy. Even General Montenegro stared at the three of them for a while. Although it was still difficult to conceal the surprise in his heart, what should be over was finally over. He waved his hand and asked the other three recording staff to help the three of them to the edge of the playground to rest. However, is this first level of testing really over? The three recording staff received the instructions and were about to take action, but Wang Ling forcibly slapped the ground on the ground and forced his upper body to stand up. His arms were even shaking due to excessive exertion. Boom! While trembling, his arms became unstable and he failed to hold himself up. As a result, he fell down again. However, Wang Ling still refused to admit defeat and continued to use his two arms to slowly push himself up, and gradually stood up. Rise. It's not over yet, I can still run. Keep going. Humph. His physical condition was obviously very bad, and he was shaking when he stood up, but he still let out a roar from his throat, and then continued running. Hey, he's obviously reached his limit, why is he still running? The limit? So what about the limit? He has been encouraging us to run beyond the limit before. Now it's on his head. Of course he won't just give in. But he is different from us. He has been running at such a fast speed for so long, and his physical consumption is far higher than ours. Terrible. Number 100 is so scary. I think he is determined to capture the elite combat soldiers. No 098 and 099 are so far ahead of him. Of course, he cannot give up. Even if he is forced, he must force himself. Run down. No wonder he encouraged us to run beyond our limits before. He is such a person with feelings. I admire him. If the elite combat soldier is captured by him, I will really admire him. Stop talking so much, number 100 has not surpassed no 098 and no 099, he is still running. Come on, no 100. Come on, don't give up, surpass the two of them. Previously, when the competitors in the first four groups or even the fifth group couldn't hold on, Wang Ling would shout in time to cheer them up. But now it was his turn. The competitors who had been encouraged by him before collectively cheered for him, as if the good deeds in the past were being rewarded at this moment. Wang Ling turned his head and glanced at them with difficulty, silently grateful in his heart, and then he covered his kidneys that were starting to hurt with one hand, breathing heavily, and took step by step. His pace is not fast, but he is very steady. Although the speed is much slower than the previous sprint, which is only equivalent to the jogging of an ordinary adult, he is always moving forward. The three recorders had already arrived on the runway, but after seeing Wang Ling's actions and taking a glance at each other, they returned to the starting point with a wave of General Montenegro's hand and continued to observe and record. As for the other two stumbling blocks, they realized that Wang Ling still didn't give up and even persisted beyond the limit. They didn't want to give up just like that. They were waiting to be passed. They forced themselves to support their bodies and tried to stand up. But boom! Boom! Although the two of them had physical fitness that was not inferior to Wang Ling's, they did not have Wang Ling's willpower. After their physical fitness was exhausted, they no longer had the extra strength to force themselves to stand up. They tried several times in succession, but all ended in failure. Had to give up. After seeing it, the two corresponding recorders hesitated for a moment, then stepped forward and helped him to the edge of the playground. Now, Wang Ling is the only one left on the entire playground track. That lonely figure is sad to see. Come on! Come on! Come on! Nearly 100 competitors are now collectively cheering him on, just like one person, adhering to the wishes and will of nearly 100 people, turning into a powerful driving force, supporting Wang Ling to continue moving forward, step by step. Due to the lack of some military experience enhancements, the overall physical fitness of the two blockers was better than his, and within their potential range, they had already surpassed him by 3.5 laps. But now, the two stumbling blocks have given up, but he is still gritting his teeth and persisting, gradually narrowing the gap. 3 laps, 2.5 laps. 2 laps, 1.5 laps, 1.5 laps. The long march of thousands of miles seemed to be almost at the end. Under the encouragement of others, Wang Ling gritted his teeth and made the final sprint. Finally, after a while of running, he successfully crossed the last half circle and completely surpassed the two obstacles. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 534. No 098 and 099 fell from that place and number 100 overtook them. Go ahead. Go ahead. Haha, awesome. No 100. Well done, well done. Hey wait, he has obviously overtaken us, why is he still running? My dear, how come this pervert still refuses to give up? As Wang Ling finally surpassed the two blockers, the onlookers cheered, as if their faith was entrusted to Wang Ling. If Wang Ling won, they would win. However, Wang Ling did not regard this as the end point. After struggling to overtake, his body shook for a while, then he gritted his teeth, took another step forward, and continued running. Everyone present was shocked. That's right, although he has overtaken the lead, Wang Ling still has not given up. In his opinion, this is not enough. The two blockers kept running at full speed and ran so far, but he took a few more minutes to catch up in the later stage. If he was asked to rate and evaluate, maybe the scores of the two blockers would be higher. This is not what he wants. Therefore, this first hurdle must continue, and his running must continue. On weekdays, Wang Ling would also train himself in this way, but that kind of training was at the morning training level at best, and there were no competitors. It was enough to run for a period of time in a tired state. But right now, the results of the two stumbling blocks were like two huge mountains, weighing on his head, forcing him to squeeze himself as hard as he could. The current run alone had completely exceeded his previous training. But this is not enough. If you want to take the lead, you must squeeze again, squeeze to the limit. As long as you still have breath, you must keep running. Hoo hoo. Huh. The sound of his breathing was very heavy, so heavy that it could be heard by competitors, recording staff, and even General Montenegro, who were some distance away. Anyone with eyesight could see that Wang Ling had clearly reached his limit long ago. But he just refused to stop. The clothes on his body were completely soaked with sweat without even realizing it. As he ran, big beads of sweat kept falling from his cheeks and fell to the track, adding a little bit of hardship to the world. Looking at this difficult situation, the brows of the competitors around him jumped. He is risking his life. Why are he working so hard to select elite combat soldiers? He is obviously much stronger than us, but he still works so hard. Look, look, he almost fell down again in this flash. Number 100 should be trying to secure the number 1 spot. It seems like he is determined to capture the elite combat soldiers. We are already in first place, but we are still working so hard. What about us? We lay down and gritted our teeth some time ago. Can we stand up again? Damn it, I just wanted to be a hero on a whim. Why did I meet such a pervert? Come on, I'm out of luck, number 100, come on. That's right, come on, number 100. Let us witness how a miracle happens, come on. Come on, don't stop. These people are competitors with each other in the selection of elite combat soldiers. Yesterday, they didn't like each other. There was a tense situation between different arms, and many of them had even taken action. However, after all, they all belong to the coalition, and they are all brothers in one army. Under the guidance of Wang Ling, this pervert, they are all united in their hearts. They cheer for Wang Ling and want to see with their own eyes how far this pervert can run. Seeing the changes in this group of elite soldiers, General Haishan was also very pleased, but there was no expression at all on his dark face, but his bright eyes were always staring at Wang Ling, feeling in his heart thumbs up for it. Hoo hoo. Huh. To be honest, Wang Ling has surpassed everyone else. Now he has no reason to persist, but he can't think of a reason to give up. Now there is no other way except persistence. Dragging his tired body, Wang Ling's running speed became slower and slower, but he was always moving. Occasionally he would fall down, but then he would forcefully get up and continue running. Such an exercise that goes beyond physical and physiological limits has made it difficult for his abnormal body after intermediate strengthening. The speed of recovery is now far behind the speed of consumption, so that he is getting more and more tired and has to breathe through his mouth for a long time. Even his throat was dry and painful, both lungs seemed to be inflated to the point of bursting, and the kidneys were so painful that they lost consciousness. This extreme state is an unprecedented test for the mind. Wang Ling felt blurred several times, but every time he was so tired that he wanted to close his eyes, he could hear the competition in his ears. Or, it was also the shouts of his comrades that always forced him to hold on, maintain his last ounce of consciousness, and continue running. In a daze, he seemed to think of the fifth instructor he met when he just entered the world of Red Alert. Wasn't the instructor at the time pushing him to the extreme on the track? Oh, everyone thinks I am as powerful as a monster, but how many people have seen the efforts I have put in for this? Think about how many times I faced physical limits, but I still had to break through again and again. How many times was I almost exhausted from fatigue, but I still had to grit my teeth and hold on. Who said that I relied entirely on the system's strengthening agents to make my fortune? Are these hardships all in vain? How many people can bear the pain of collapse during strengthening? As for why you still persist? Haha, I don't know now. Maybe it's because I don't want to admit defeat. While running, he was often accompanied by bursts of ethereal state. In this state, Wang Ling also recalled all the pain he had experienced in the past. He felt an unyielding emotion in his heart, shouting almost hysterically. With this kind of motivation, he had obviously drained all his physical energy, but he still took step after step, like an old machine. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes and 60 minutes. Wang Ling is no longer the ignorant young man he was when he was just starting out. The will and encouragement he possesses are incomparable to those before. Under the extreme state, he managed to hold on a little bit for a whole hour. Although the distance he ran in this 1 hour was not even as good as the entire distance he ran in 10 minutes under normal conditions, this steel-like will moved even General Montenegro and all the competitors. Shout like crazy for it. Hoo hoo. Cough 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 cough. And there will always be times when the manpower is exhausted, and the string is almost broken, dragging down the monster-like body. After holding on for so long, Wang Ling finally squeezed himself dry, breathing heavily for a long time. His throat was so dry and sore that it even cracked and coughed up blood when he coughed. As the trace of blood flew out, Wang Ling finally fell to the ground. Severe pain could be felt in his throat while breathing. Under the pain and extreme exertion, Wang Ling also closed his eyes and fell into a coma. Past. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 535. Fall down again. Can you stand up again this time? Wait and see, maybe you can still stand up. Come on, number 100, can you continue to create miracles? There is no movement at all. It seems to be over. Don't wait, didn't you see that he was coughing up blood just now? Even if he can still stand up, he can't continue like this. After Wang Ling fell into coma, the competitors on the edge of the playground wondered and looked forward to it for a long time. Finally, they were sure that Wang Ling's run was over. This time, without any special instructions from General Montenegro, the corresponding recorder rushed up to check the situation. The sensation caused by Wang Ling on this playground was too great. Following the staff, the competitors who had recovered some strength also stood up one after another and quickly came to Wang Ling's side, vying to watch. And asked, "Brother, how's it going? How is No 100? After the staff checked, they were a little worried. He was overworked and passed out. His throat was broken, his breathing was trembling and weak, and his muscles were spasming. He was as hard as a rock. He was seriously overloaded. Number 100, you are risking your life. Even if you are competing for elite combat soldiers, you can't do this nonsense. Really, this is the first time I have seen someone so desperate. No wonder he is already a senior colonel at such a young age. I can't help but accept it. Damn it, you've gotten to this point, number 100 is really a lunatic. No, you're a purebred lunatic. Don't talk about it yet, number 100 is in too bad a condition, send him to the infirmary as soon as possible. Yes, hurry up. A group of competitors urged, but the record keeper looked at General Montenegro alone. When he saw the old general nodding slightly at him, he calmed down, picked up Wang Ling on his back, and carefully carried Wang Ling away. Arrive at the infirmary. With Wang Ling's departure, the first pass of this elite combat soldier was officially over. Except for Wang Ling, the other 99 candidates gathered again under the order of General Montenegro and lined up neatly. I thought that General Montenegro was going to lecture for a long time, find out the shortcomings of this group of people, and scold them, but in fact, General Montenegro did not do that. He just said that he would gather here at the same time tomorrow and announce the results at the same time. It will be disbanded directly from now on. In fact, General Montenegro did prepare the final lecture at the beginning. He caught a group of people who gave up first and scolded them to scare the monkeys. But with Wang Ling's involvement, there was no need to add any more fuss. Even because Wang Ling left the scene and the staff was incomplete, he didn't want to say much else, which gave people the feeling of a hasty disbandment. After being tortured through this level and not having to be scolded afterwards, these candidates were happy and relaxed. After the show was over, there was time for free activities. Many people went to the infirmary to check on Wang Ling's condition and learned from the military doctor. Knowing that the situation was stable and that he could rest for a period of time with the help of some medicines, he felt relieved and everyone was busy with their own affairs after they dispersed. It's interesting to say that a group of competitors who were at war with each other before seemed to have put aside their prejudices after the first level. They even became closer because they had competed together, and they were in groups. People gathered together to discuss the possible results of this first level, and even some people with bad tempers even had intimate discussions with each other. Naturally, as the absolute protagonist today, Wang Ling is mentioned quite frequently. As a popular figure in the coalition forces, Wang Ling has already been famous among all the major units. The group of candidates in the selection field even regarded him as their biggest competitor. It's just that they didn't have an accurate idea of how strong Wang Ling was before, but today they saw Wang Ling's persistence with their own eyes, and they all sighed. Of course, not everyone is like this. Among them, the two biggest obstacles are No 098 and No 099. These two people were temporarily created by the system specifically to embarrass Wang Ling. Although they were even better than Wang Ling in terms of physical fitness, they were not as flexible as other personnel. Their zombie-like faces were always expressionless and repulsive. Thousands of miles away, naturally there is no contact with other people. The other two dangerous units are Crazy Ivan and Radiation Engineers. It's not that they refuse to talk, but they always hold their weapons, either bombs or radiation reactors, which are too dangerous. But compared to those two stumbling blocks, his popularity is still better. As for Wang Ling, this time he persisted for too long and went too far. His physical condition has never been so bad, and he has been in a coma during this time. In the coma state, Wang Ling's consciousness was always hazy. In a trance, he seemed to be able to hear the cheers of other candidates one after another. It was like a dream, repeating the running action over and over again. In this way, after a long time, Wang Ling finally regained some consciousness and gradually opened his eyes. This time, he was in coma for most of the day. When he woke up, it was already night, which showed that his physical energy was severely depleted. However, the military doctor was very surprised by the speed of his awakening. According to what the military doctor said, Wang Ling's condition would mean that he would not wake up until at least tomorrow morning. In fact, if it were anyone else, tomorrow morning would be a nightmare. However, Wang Ling's body recovery ability after intermediate strengthening is different from ordinary people. Even in the bad state like before, after being comatose for most of the day, it has gradually improved. He was recovering, and he was able to walk normally when he woke up that night, but his muscles were still a little sore. Now that he was able to move around, Wang Ling did not regard himself as a wounded person and left the infirmary regardless of the military doctor's obstruction. However, the military doctor could not do anything to him. After all, his physical condition has not fully recovered. Not to mention that every part of his body is aching, his voice is still a little hoarse, and it hurts when he speaks louder. After leaving the infirmary, Wang Ling did not walk around and went to the cafeteria to eat something. After packing my things, I went directly back to the dormitory. Now most of the other candidates were in the dormitory. When they saw Wang Ling opening the door and entering, almost everyone looked over and the dormitory seemed to be exploding. They all stepped forward one after another. There were a lot of people talking around Wang Ling. Some were asking about his physical condition, some were lamenting Wang Ling's persistence, and some were calling him a lunatic. Wang Ling was already well known, and the first level of the selection made him even more popular in this selection place. Almost all the candidates could only admire Wang Ling's performance. Words to describe. Wang Ling was somewhat used to this kind of atmosphere. He responded with a smile, and then said that his body still needed some rest. Then he stopped the others and lay down on the bed safely. Although he has been keen on the elite combat soldiers for a long time, Wang Ling was inevitably a little tired from the continuous struggle until now. He did not insist on staying in the red alert world tonight, so he contacted Uncle He and returned to the transfer station. Uncle He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at Wang Ling with a look of disbelief. "You are really a pervert. You have obviously reached your limit. Why can you still break through the limit again and run for so long?" Wang Ling glared at him and replied, "It's not your fault. If these two obstacles were eliminated, I wouldn't have to work so hard." Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 536. During the days when he got along with Wang Ling, Uncle He had long been accustomed to Wang Ling's complaining attitude. Usually when he heard such complaints, Uncle He would always laugh and gloat, but this time, Uncle He was a little embarrassed. After saying that, he even kept looking like he was thinking, not knowing what he was thinking about. Wang Ling did not wait for his words, greeted him, and returned to the real world. After he left the transfer station, Uncle He sighed, "A machine that loses energy cannot continue to operate, it will not take another step forward after completing the prescribed tasks. However, what does human beings rely on? You have reached your limit, but you can still surpass and persevere again and again? Is this the so-called will? Wang Ling. Wang Ling. This kid is very interesting. This host is very special. Just by relying on with this strong will and the injection of advanced physical fitness enhancers, maybe I can really succeed. Boy, slowly get stronger, I'm really looking forward to that day." Wang Ling was not able to hear these words of Uncle He. Now he has returned to the real world, lying on the bed and falling asleep. In the world of Red Alert, time is limited after all. Tomorrow will be the second level of screening and assessment. He needs the buffer of this day in the real world to adjust his physical condition. With his intermediate level enhanced physical fitness, one extra day would not be enough to overcome the effects. When he returned to the Red Alert world at night, his fatigued state had basically recovered, and even his voice gradually returned to normal. I have to say, this recovery ability is really quite enviable. After passing this first level of test and assessment, the atmosphere in the candidates' dormitory has also changed to a great extent. The tension of yesterday is completely gone, and there is a sense of joy and harmony when talking to each other. Wang Ling had previously said that he needed to rest due to physical reasons. During this period, no one came to disturb him. He lay on the bed and slept peacefully until dawn the next day. After getting up and having breakfast together, and taking a short rest, the assembly call sounded again on the playground. After hearing this, all the candidates hurriedly moved and quickly lined up according to yesterday's arrangement. The first level ended yesterday, and today it's time to start the second level. The first level was already so demanding, and I didn't know what the second level would be like. Thinking of this, many candidates at the scene felt a little unsure. Of course, if you want to participate in the second level, you must successfully pass the first level. This gathering should have results. When this group of people gathered, General Montenegro was already standing in front of them, with his hands behind his back and an expressionless face. But as soon as he stood here, it was inevitable that he would give people a sense of oppression, a feeling of superiority. The majesty seemed overwhelming. After the assembly was completed, General Montenegro looked at the group of people, nodded slightly, and then ordered, "No 098, no 099, no 100. Arrive. 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 Get out of the queue." The three of them moved in response and quickly stood at the front of the formation. General Montenegro immediately asked, "You three perverts, were you exhausted yesterday?" When he suddenly asked this question, Wang Ling didn't know how to answer him for a moment. He didn't know what he meant. Did he want to praise or curse? Similarly, the two stumbling blocks No 098 and 099 did not speak, and the atmosphere was a bit awkward at this time. However, General Montenegro did not expect them to answer, so he pointed it out directly. Yesterday, the three of you performed well. After our review, the three of you took the top 3 in the first level. The sentiment was a compliment. After Wang Ling heard this, he was slightly relieved, and General Haishan immediately asked, "You three seem to be in a special state. Can the follow-up sessions continue?" Report to the general. Yes, Wang Ling replied quickly, and the other two blockers also hurriedly followed suit. After a whole day of buffering in the real world, Wang Ling's fatigue has been completely eliminated and he is full of energy again. Although the other two stumbling blocks did not have this channel, they were unable to continue after draining their physical energy. Naturally, they required less recovery time than Wang Ling, and they have basically returned to normal now. After learning about this situation, General Montenegro nodded slightly, and without saying any more, he took out a pamphlet. "Now, let's announce yesterday's finalists." Finally, when this time came, the candidates on the scene became nervous after hearing this. Although they know that with Wang Ling and the other two stumbling blocks, the possibility of their final victory is very small, no one wants to be eliminated at this first level. No 001, no 002, no 004, no 008, no 010. No 051, no 053, no 055, no 056, no 059. No 092, no 094, no 095, no 096, no 097. Arrive. 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 As General Montenegro called out a series of numbers, the corresponding candidates also responded with arrive one after another. After the last number was called out, General Montenegro shouted again, "Get out of the queue." The 47 people whose names were called quickly left the formation, stood together with Wang Ling and the others, and regrouped to form another formation. General Montenegro looked at them and nodded with satisfaction. "Congratulations, you successfully passed the first level." Upon hearing the news, except for Wang Ling and the others, the other 47 people were delighted. The other 50 people inevitably showed disappointed expressions. They failed to pass the first level. What awaited them might be to be scolded and then immediately driven out of the selection place and returned to the army. As for the other 50 people, unfortunately, you were eliminated. When they were disappointed, General Montenegro finally turned the tables on them, but unlike what they thought, General Montenegro actually said this: "According to what I thought, I failed at the first level and should be scolded. I immediately rushed out of here. However, your performance yesterday has won my respect. The failure to successfully pass the level is not because you are incompetent. In fact, you have done a very good job, but you have met some people who are stronger than you. They are just opponents. Therefore, I have made an exception for this purpose and allow you to stay here and witness with your own eyes the emergence of the final elite combat soldiers." "Yes, General." After hearing this, a group of people were all happy, and for a moment they were a little complacent. Finally, under the leadership of a few bright-minded soldiers, they collectively responded to General Montenegro. They were the ones who got stuck in the first level. They thought they would be looked down upon, but they didn't expect General Montenegro to praise them. This was an unexpected surprise. Snort. General Montenegro raised the corners of his mouth slightly, as if he was smiling. He glanced at the group of people and shouted, "Soldiers, you must have the backbone of a soldier. If you had chosen to give up yesterday when you exhausted your physical strength for the first time, it would be early now. You have been included in my contempt list. But you didn't. After reaching the limit, you still did not give up, but chose to challenge the limit and continue running under the limit. Well done, this is what our coalition soldiers should have. This is the willpower our coalition soldiers should have. Although some of you have failed, it is still an honor to defeat. I am proud of you. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 537. I'm proud of you. General Montenegro's words were so sonorous and powerful. After hearing this, the 50 people who had been eliminated gradually became excited in their hearts. What's more, their eye circles were a little red. General Haitian is the assessor this time, and his military rank has reached the level of general. His status is completely different from theirs. But when facing these losers, General Montenegro, instead of beating or scolding them, he actually said such words of encouragement. Listening to this, they couldn't help but recall the scene of running desperately yesterday. Those efforts were not in vain after all. After expressing their gratitude, many people couldn't help but look at Wang Ling's back with gratitude in their eyes. They are obviously competitors, but yesterday when they were almost exhausted, Wang Ling was still cheering them on. It can be said that their willingness to persevere has something to do with Wang Ling's encouragement. Not only them, but also Wang Ling was in a daze after hearing it. These words reminded him of what the fifth instructor had said to him alone: this world will not sympathize with the weak, but it will respect everyone who works hard. How similar is this sentence to now? I haven't felt this way for a long time. Take back all your emotions. Now is not the time for you to be pretentious. The screening and assessment are still going on, but just when these people were sighing and feeling sad, General Montenegro suddenly poured a basin of cold water on everyone present. He returned to normal, listening and watching with concentration. After glancing at everyone present, General Montenegro continued, yesterday's first level has passed, but the assessment of elite combat soldiers has 4 levels. Today, the second level, shooting and target practice, is about to begin. Upon hearing about this project, many people at the scene were a little confused. How come the assessment of elite combat soldiers is all about this kind of basic project? Yesterday was lap running, and today it was target practice. This seems to be part of a boot camp, right? Why, do you think it's easy? At this time, General Montenegro chuckled sinisterly. After others saw it, their expressions became slightly abnormal. Why did this smile look so malicious? Yesterday's lap run, although simple to say, exhausted a group of elite soldiers. It was simply too harsh. So what's going to happen in this target shooting test now? General Montenegro didn't explain too much to them. He waved his hand and said, when you start operating it yourself, it won't be too late to make it simple. Now follow me to the shooting range. After he finished speaking, the staff on the side shouted, everyone is here, turn right and run. Although he was not a real soldier, Wang Ling had been in the red alert world for so long. He almost had a subconscious reaction to such basic passwords and quickly followed the passwords. The others were not slow either, and soon all members of the 2 formations arrived at the shooting range. The overall specifications of this shooting range are the same as those of a recruit training camp. There are 50 fixed targets and 50 shooting points corresponding to 300 meters away. At first glance, there is nothing out of the ordinary, and even this distance does not count. Harsh. Is this the second level for elite combat soldiers? All the candidates were confused, and even those who had been eliminated were a little confused. According to what they thought, the first level was very demanding, and the second level should not be bad either. The target shooting was at least a super long distance moving target, or a flying saucer type, with a hit rate of almost 100%, which was barely enough. It's about the same difficulty as the first level. But just looking at the formation at the shooting range, It doesn't seem that difficult. What kind of medicine is sold in General Montenegro's gourd? Just when this group of candidates was wondering, General Montenegro finally introduced, yes, this is the second level. It is a fixed target. There are not many requirements. Each person has 100 rounds of bullets, and they must be fired as quickly as possible, hit them all within the time. The final score is based on the length of time you use and the hit rate. The higher you go up the pyramid, the more people will be screened. Don't underestimate this second level. The elimination rate is even higher than the first level, is even bigger, and in the end, only the top 20 people in the overall evaluation will be selected, and all the others will be eliminated. 50 into 20? There is a 60% elimination rate in one level, which is a bit too high. After hearing this, the 50 candidates inevitably felt a little stressed. General Montenegro did not give them any time to question. After speaking, he directly ordered, now, the 50 candidates who have passed the first level should take their places according to their ranking numbers. Yes. 50 people responded hurriedly, and then each found their own shooting point according to what General Montenegro said. The firearm in front of him is an old AK series rifle. The magazine has been expanded several times to contain 100 rounds of bullets. Now it has been placed on the fixed frame. After it is in place, turn on the safety. Can shoot at any time. Wang Ling had participated in this kind of shooting training many times. He lay down, hugged the rifle, and looked at the sight. With his eyesight, he could clearly see the target 300 meters away. Taking advantage of the recoil, he was absolutely sure that he would hit the bull's-eye 100%. The eyesight of others is naturally not as good as his after the intermediate level enhancement, but there are elite soldiers from all major armies present. Although there are also some anti-aircraft infantry, magnetic blast infantry, radiation engineers, and even Crazy Ivan, the weapons used are special and not submachine guns and assault rifles, but with their personal qualities, their results will not be bad, and there must be many perverts among other elite mobilization soldiers, and their target shooting rate can be maintained at 100%. So since they are all good at it, what is the purpose of this screening assessment? After getting into position, and before the start order was issued, Wang Ling had been thinking about this, and was still a little confused for a while. General Montenegro did not elaborate. After everyone was in place, he walked from one end to the other with his hands behind his back, still very slowly. After he passed by, he nodded to the staff member, and the staff member immediately shouted, "Get ready. Start. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Da-da-da." With the last sound of start popping out, the 50 shooting points opened fire rapidly. Although I am a little confused about this level, it seems that it is not time to think too much now. After all, there is a time limit in the requirements. The shorter the time, the better. However, things were a bit unexpected. After a burst of rapid shooting, it was clear that there were still a large number of bullets that had not been fired at the 50 shooting points, but at this time, they all stopped shooting with some surprise on their faces. Because these people had just been shooting, and all of them missed the target, and no one hit. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 538. 50 elites, all missed the target. Even Wang Ling and the two blockers failed to hit even one shot. Even if this target shooting event was put into a recruit training camp, all of them would not miss the target. But when it was the turn of these 50 elite soldiers, they actually caused such a ridiculous scene. Everyone missed the target? How is this possible? On such a simple level, you can still miss the target. It's weird, none of them are simple. How come they didn't hit even one in the end? Even one shot would be fine, but they didn't hit even one. What's going on? This unexpected scene also confused the 50 eliminated candidates at the edge of the shooting range. They did not operate it themselves, and for a while they were not sure what went wrong. After a period of consternation, some clever soldiers finally figured out the reason. I understand, there is something wrong with the gun. Gun. That's right. The target is unlikely to have problems, and it's hard to manipulate, but the gun is different. The precision of this thing is too high. If it's just a little wrong, there may be problems in shooting, not to mention they are 300 meters away. During target practice, the sight was deliberately a little off, so of course I couldn't hit the target. Hey, this second level is really not as easy as I thought, it's so sinister. Yes, just as these eliminated personnel had guessed, the old AK rifles used by Wang Ling and the others did have problems and had been tampered with. Sometimes, it is not the authorities who are confused by the onlookers. In fact, the 50 candidates on the shooting range have already felt this situation when they were shooting, so they hurriedly stopped firing. However, during the ceasefire, the shooting situation of the 50 people was somewhat different. Some people were eager to fire and compete for points, but when they realized something was wrong with the firearm and stopped firing, they had already fired more than 10 bullets, and naturally all their points were wasted. The reaction speed of other people is also different. Some people fired close to 10 rounds, some fired 7 or 8 rounds. Naturally, there were also those who reacted very fast and only fired 5 rounds, such as the two blockers No. 098 and 099, and several others. An elite mobilization force. As for Wang Ling, this guy had always been cautious when shooting. As a result, he only fired 2 rounds from the time of firing to the ceasefire. In just these few seconds, the reaction speed of the 50 candidates has already stratified. However, how many bullets each fired was hidden data after all. It was not recorded on the target. Of course, they did not know the relevant situation. They only knew that they all missed the target and there was something wrong with the firearm. Since the firearm was hand-operated, they naturally thought of the sight at the first moment, so a large number of candidates quickly corrected the sight, and then raced against time to continue shooting. Da-da-da. 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 More than 40 shooting points were opened, but to their surprise, even if the sights were calibrated, all subsequent shots missed the target. Damn, that's so insidious. The problem isn't just with the sight. Some soldiers who reacted quickly realized what was happening immediately, and various bad-tempered people even couldn't hold back their swear words. At this second level, the screening and assessment of shooting and target shooting continued. Everyone had to race against time for scoring. After a very short period of complaining, a group of elite soldiers hurriedly inspected the firearms. As a result, a group of people temporarily discovered that the fixed frame had also been tampered with, and the screw interface had been artificially loosened. The vibration when the firearm was fired would cause the fixed frame to deviate. When shooting at 300 meters, this slight deviation will greatly affect the shooting route, and of course it will be impossible to hit the target. Hateful. This discovery also made many soldiers a little impatient. They quickly reinforced the fixed frame with their hands and continued shooting. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. More than 20 shooting points continued to fire, but the subsequent results made them a little angry, and they all missed the target again. There's still a problem. Damn it, why are you so kind? They fixed everything in place. It turns out such a big hole has been dug. How many areas of this broken AK have been tampered with? Over and over again, how many bullets I wasted? In the second level, not only the shooting time was recorded and scored, but each person only had 100 rounds of bullets. After several successive adjustments, a lot of bullets were wasted. This group of soldiers can be said to be on the verge of elimination. Can they? Are you in a hurry? At the edge of the shooting range, the candidates who had already been eliminated glanced at each other, and many of them couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. They didn't go on the field in person, so they didn't know what was going on with the candidates on the field, but they also knew how perverted those people were. Under normal circumstances, shooting would not miss the target all the time. Some smart people have almost figured out by now that these are probably the firearms in their hands that have been tampered with in more than one place. If this situation falls on them, they may not be able to do better than those on the field. Some people are even glad that they are not involved in this level. Behind the 50 shooting points, General Montenegro watched the scene with helpless eyes, and actually laughed a little playfully. Now, who dares to say that this level is easy? Isn't it? As the saying goes, if you want to do your job well, you must first sharpen your tools. Although the target shooting test is simple, the firearms in their hands have been tampered with inside and out. The originally simple screening assessment has turned these candidates into the person was very distressed. However, after all, they were the elite selected by the troops from all sides, and their on-the-spot reaction was not slow. After struggling for a period of time, a conscript quickly started to disassemble the firearms at hand. There was no shielding from each other on the shooting range. The movements of this elite soldier were also seen by the competitors around him, and they quickly dismantled them after being inspired. As a result, this turmoil quickly affected almost all the candidates, and they hurriedly disassembled their firearms. At this point in the target practice, they have no idea how many manipulations have been done to the firearm at hand. If they continue to adjust it bit by bit, not to mention that it takes too much time, the bullets alone cannot supply the consumption. So simply disassemble the entire firearm and reassemble it, which is equivalent to a large-scale inspection. The overall time is definitely less than a little debugging, and the firearms reassembled by yourself can better guarantee the quality of use. Therefore, on the next shooting range, the focus of the competition was actually the speed of disassembly and reassembly of firearms. However, there is one exception, such as Wang Ling. Previously, others were debugging the firearms and firing them for testing, but he was indifferent. Now that others were dismantling the firearms in full swing, he was also unmoved. He just stared at the target, not knowing what he was thinking. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 539. Look, look, they're dismantling the guns. What a great idea. The firearm has been tampered with in many places. It would take time, effort, and ammunition to check them one by one. It's better to dismantle and reassemble the whole thing and start over. Doesn't that mean it's now a competition to see who can disassemble and assemble the gun faster? It seems so. When it comes to shooting, they are all elites. The difference shouldn't be too big, just who is faster. This should be the unspoken rule of the second level, right? Huh? That's weird. Why is number 100 so indifferent? Yes, everyone else is dismantling their guns, and number 100 has not made any move yet. What is he thinking? Isn't he afraid of falling behind? At the edge of the shooting range, the 50 candidates who were eliminated were talking about the performance of the remaining 50 people. During the discussion, many people turned their attention to Wang Ling. After all, these 50 shooting points were just across the road from Wang Ling. Everyone else was dismantling their guns, but he was in a daze. In fact, when Wang Ling saw the others quickly dismantling their firearms, he immediately guessed what they were thinking and silently admired them. He had indeed thought about giving it a try. But just as he was about to start, he held back. Looking at the targets in the distance, Wang Ling was also thinking about these two levels. Whether it's running laps or today's target shooting, to be honest, this is the basic content of recruit training, but it is used as the selection and assessment of elite combat soldiers. Of course, this test cannot be the basic quality. For example, in the first level, simply running in circles exhausted everyone. In the end, Wang Ling relied on his tenacity to forcefully pass the level. The second level, the target shooting test, sounds quite simple, but in fact, due to the failure of the firearms, these candidates are in a state of distress. After successive debuggings to no avail, they are now collectively dismantling and reorganizing. After briefly comparing the content of these two levels, Wang Ling thought briefly for a while, and finally couldn't help but shook his head mockingly. I finally understand. These two levels test in addition to the most basic strength, and two other characteristics. The first level tests the perseverance of perseverance. Only those who persevere to the end can pass the level, so General Montenegro also looks at the 50 eliminated people differently, because they are indeed persevering. And this second level is a test. It should be all about judgment. The time scoring factor was deliberately set, but the firearms were fully tampered with. In this situation, it is a test of how the candidates respond and how to complete the test as quickly as possible. Now that the intention has been guessed, the next thing will be easier to handle. Others were at a loss, and after being awakened by someone, they chose to disassemble and assemble again. Of course, this was also the safest way. Of course, all roads lead to Rome, and there is not just one way to deal with the second level. There is another way, and not everyone is capable of using it. Thinking of this, Wang Ling smiled with relief, and then in front of everyone, holding the old AK that had been modified, he quickly stood up, and finally maintained a half-kneeling posture, gave up the fixed frame, and put the butt of the gun. It was pressed against his armpit, his left hand firmly grasped the back of the barrel, his right hand grasped the gun body, and his index finger was on the trigger. He fired without any aiming movement at all, relying solely on his feeling for shooting. That's right, Wang Ling's final choice was not to disassemble and reassemble the firearm like the others, but to use the tampered rifle to shoot forcibly. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. In this round of shooting, Wang Ling was obviously not trying. He really planned to finish his second level in one go. After his finger pulled the trigger, he never raised it again. As a result, the old AK in the next 10 seconds, the rifle shot out fiery snakes one after another, penetrating the fixed target that belonged to him. His move was completely beyond the expectations of everyone at the scene. The recorder who was responsible for observing him quickly began to observe with concentration. General Montenegro couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, with a look of surprise on his face, and all the 50 eliminated people watching the show were also stunned. Other candidates who were dismantling their firearms were also startled by the gunfire for a moment. They all turned their heads and looked at Wang Ling, their eyes full of disbelief. This firearm was full of problems, but he didn't reassemble it and just fired it? Is he crazy? It seems that they have determined that only dismantling and reassembling is the correct way to the second level. These candidates are very disapproving of Wang Ling's actions, thinking that he is just fooling around. However, Wang Ling slapped him in the face with his shooting performance. There were a total of 98 rounds of bullets left in the AK in his hand. As a result, under Wang Ling's precise shooting, only the first 3 rounds of these bullets missed, but they all hit the target and gradually moved towards the bullseye. And the remaining 95 rounds of bullets, without exception, all hit the bullseye and smashed the entire bullseye. Within these 10 seconds, the observer could see that the AK in Wang Ling's hand seemed to have no recoil. Almost all the bullets hit the same ray, which was shockingly accurate. You know, Wang Ling used a problematic firearm, and he himself had no special aiming movements at all. 10 seconds later, as all the bullets were fired, Wang Ling's second round of checkpoints also officially ended. He put down his firearm, stood up, turned around and gave a military salute to General Montenegro. His movements were very neat and done in one go. It was so cool. But when he was looking cool, the recorder in charge of him was already stunned. Oh my God, is he still a human? Using an AK with passive hands and feet, he shot almost blindly. Except for 3 missed shots, the rest all hit the bullseye. Hiss. My dear, You are really not a human being. What a pervert you are. If you compete with this pervert number 100, your mentality will easily go wrong. Grandma, what a bear, are you competing with this pervert to become an elite combat soldier? Just be a foil. These words of the recorder were not deliberately concealed, and most of the people in the audience could hear them. After learning about Wang Ling's results, everyone's mentality collapsed, and General Montenegro looked at Wang Ling, which was even more, its unabashed appreciation. However, this kind of performance was a very strong pressure for the other competitors. Many people put down their work, looked at Wang Ling, and swallowed hard. Only then did they know that there was this way to clear the second level. However, this method of clearance is not available to everyone. I have personally experienced how difficult it is to target the AK with its hands and feet. I have to ask myself, if they really shoot blindly like Wang Ling, let alone if you hit the bullseye, even the probability of hitting the target is questionable. Of course, the two stumbling blocks No 098 and 099 can actually do it, but these two people have made another judgment before. Most of the firearms on hand have been disassembled, and there are only some parts left. It is impossible to use them again. Copy what Wang Ling did. Hateful. We can't just admit defeat. Go on, don't be disturbed. After being shocked by Wang Ling's results for a while, this group of people obviously didn't want to give up just like that. However, it is obviously impossible to follow Wang Ling's approach. Many of the firearms on hand have been disassembled, so we can only follow this path and keep going. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 540. Click click click. Click click click. Click click click. A strange scene just happened. Wang Ling was the first to complete the target shooting test. Now he had stood up and stood aside as if nothing had happened. However, the others were still desperately dismantling and observing the firearms at hand, shooting in 49 places. They are all busy doing the same thing. Among the soldiers at the scene, the conscripts originally used Babisha submachine guns, the magnetic blast infantry used electromagnetic devices to deal with the enemy, the anti-aircraft infantry carried anti-aircraft gun barrels, the radiation engineers carried the radiation reactor, and Crazy Ivan used bombs to deal with the enemy. It is said that there is no one type of arms, and they use AK series rifles. This is the first time for many people to come into contact with this kind of firearms. The disassembly and reassembly are not very smooth. However, these soldiers are all elites selected from major armies. Have you never eaten pork and seen a pig run away? They are all familiar with the disassembly and reassembly of firearms. Even if they have never been exposed to an AK, after disassembling and observing it, they also know its installation method, but the difference is only in the length of time it takes. Among these people, the two blockers were particularly fast. Their shooting point was relatively biased, and they only learned about the method of disassembly and reassembly later, but now they have come from behind, completely dismantled the firearms, and have begun to reassemble them. To be honest, the situation of these two roadblocks is quite embarrassing. Their hard power is actually not inferior to Wang Ling's, and they can definitely do Wang Ling's blind shot just now. But who made them choose to disassemble their firearms before? After Wang Ling finished blind shooting, they realized there was such a way, but by that time it was already too late. The firearm on hand had been dismantled in half. Do they still need to install it back according to the original assembly method and follow Wang Ling's example? That's simply impossible. Not to mention how difficult it is to do this, the key point is that even if it is really done, all the remaining bullets will hit the bullseye, but the completion time will be far behind Wang Ling. What's more, there have been disassembly steps, who would believe that they can still be installed back according to the original assembly method? Isn't that nonsense? These two roadblocks were temporarily created by the system to create obstacles for Wang Ling. I don't know if they have the thoughts of other soldiers in this world. If so, I don't know how aggrieved they must be now. However, this kind of mechanical procedure also has its advantages. It is not easily disturbed by emotions. Having the experience of just disassembling it, now they can install the firearm very quickly, surpassing other competitors by a long way. After the installation was completed, it was placed on the fixed frame that had also been reorganized, and it was aimed at the target in the distance and fired. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. These two people only missed 5 bullets beforehand, and they still had 95 rounds left. After regrouping, when they fired, all 95 bullets hit the target without exception. After nearly 10 seconds of shooting, the bullets were finally fired, and the two blockers successfully passed the second level. They quickly stood up and gave a military salute to General Montenegro to indicate that the shooting was completed. Although their movements were very graceful, due to Wang Ling's precedent, not many people paid too much attention to their radiance. In the first level, although their physical fitness was superior to Wang Ling's, they were overtaken by Wang Ling's crazy will. In this second level, they also lost to Wang Ling. Although all 95 rounds hit the target, this result was the same as Wang Ling's, but the time it took was much longer than Wang Ling's. Moreover, Wang Ling had 3 more bullets that hit the target. It can be said that he was ahead in all aspects. For both of them. Now that these 3 perverts have completed the second level of testing, it's up to others. Click click click. Click click click. The disassembly and reorganization of the others was still in progress. Wang Ling and the 2 roadblocks were the first to complete it. This also brought a lot of psychological pressure to them, making it easier for them to get into trouble while busy and taking more time. However, fortunately, the psychological quality of these people is not bad. Now, almost everyone has reached the stage of reorganization. After a period of time, a soldier finally completed the reorganization of his firearms. Wang Ling and the others looked at him and found that the leading man was not a conscript who was good at using firearms, but Crazy Ivan, the only one who had been promoted. Also, Crazy Ivan is an expert at playing with bombs. Their psychological quality is far superior to other soldiers and they are not easily disturbed. Moreover, they study precision bombs and naturally have some experience in the disassembly and reassembly of firearms. It is reasonable for them to be ahead. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. After regrouping, Crazy Ivan immediately started shooting. However, after all, he is an expert in playing with bombs, so his shooting skills are not too good. Of the more than 80 rounds of bullets left, only about 50 hit the target, and there were even 5 or 6 that missed the target. With Wang Ling and 2 comparing the performance of the famous stumbling block, the difference is more than 1.5 stars. As Crazy Ivan finished shooting, other competitors also completed their reorganization one after another. Unable to wait any longer, they all set up their fixed stands and started shooting. After this disassembly and reassembly, after the problems with the firearm itself were eliminated, the remaining shooting became much simpler. Among these people, there are indeed some sharpshooters, and the probability of the remaining bullets hitting the bullseye is also 100%, but the number of bullets is somewhat uneven. There are also some whose results are slightly worse, but they are not much worse. The probability of hitting the target is basically more than 80%, and there are very few cases where the target is missed. In this way, for a long time, gunfire emitted almost continuously from the shooting range. It was not until all the remaining 46 people had finished shooting that the second level was officially over. Then, under the whistle of the staff, the 50 candidates gathered again, and General Montenegro stood in front of them, scanning them for a long time, and finally his eyes fell on Wang Ling, number 100. Arrive. Fire blindly. Still shoot blindly with a modified firearm, tisk tisk, awesome. General Montenegro smiled and asked, are you so sure that all of them hit the bullseye? Wang Ling quickly gave a military salute and replied, reporting to the general, I am not 100% sure. In fact, my blind shot did miss 3 bullets. However, in this second assessment, judgment itself is a indicators. I rely on my own feeling and control of shooting to make the decision to shoot blindly. I don't expect to hit the target 100%, but I want to try to hit the target in the shortest possible time and with the highest probability. Haha, well said. General Montenegro nodded and said with a playful smile, isn't your statement of as high as possible a bit too shocking? 98 rounds of bullets, blind shooting, hit the bullseye 95 times. Then if you are completely sure, how can you can't everyone else just pack up and go home? Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 541. General Montenegro's words were just to tease Wang Ling, but when heard by other candidates, they felt ashamed. Not to mention Wang Ling was completely sure, but even if he wasn't, would others still have hope to compete? Although there are 4 levels of screening and assessment, after only 2 passes, these people have clearly seen the gap with Wang Ling. Apart from No 098 and No 099, who else can compete with him? Do it? Is this completely certain, and is it still that important? Anyway, everyone else has packed up and returned to the army, and now they are just dying. However, Wang Ling didn't think so much for a while, and just replied awkwardly, General, you are joking. General Montenegro ignored his words, and then scanned the 50 candidates as a whole, and smiled, how about this second level, is it easy? For a moment, no one answered this question. This second level is not difficult at all. It is nothing more than shooting at a target. However, even though it is simple, it did make a group of candidates very anxious. After it was over, a group of people felt entangled. As if he had already guessed their thoughts, General Montenegro did not expect them to answer at all. Instead, he scolded, in the first level, you showed me your perseverance, which is very good. I appreciate it very much. But this time second level, why are so many people confused? The 300-meter fixed target is a basic training item in the recruit training camp. How could it be so simply included in the selection of elite combat soldiers? Those first you just fired a dozen rounds of bullets from the beginning, just to save time, didn't you think about the pit dug by this rule at all? After the words fell, the candidates who were scolded all showed ashamed expressions and did not dare to answer anything. General Montenegro didn't say anything for a while, he just stared at this group of people. The scene was a little quiet and tense for a while. However, after being nervous for a moment, General Montenegro grinned and showed a sarcastic smile. However, your overall performance is commendable. You realized there was a problem with the firearm, quickly adjusted it, and then made a new one. The decision to disassemble and assemble it and complete the test in the shortest possible time did not disappoint me too much. Call. After finally changing his tune, the atmosphere eased and all the candidates breathed a sigh of relief. Then General Montenegro said, the test of the second level is over. I won't have anything to do with you in the morning. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, gather in the playground. Disband. After saying that, General Montenegro turned around and left the shooting range with a group of staff. And with the departure of General Montenegro, the pressure on the group of candidates finally disappeared, and the group gradually became happy. Many people surrounded Wang Ling, surprised by his decision to shoot blindly, and exclaimed. The hit rate of his blind shooting, some people even spoke with a bit of jealousy, which made a group of people laugh. As for the 2 stumbling blocks, after all, they were only temporary procedures. They also had very obvious communication barriers with other soldiers, and they could not stick together at all. When the others were laughing, these two people had already walked out of the shooting range alone. With their indifferent figures, some of the candidates who watched were a little dissatisfied. Number 100, where did those two people come from? It feels so weird. Wang Ling looked at the two stumbling blocks and said half-jokingly, those are two stumbling blocks, specifically to cause trouble for me. However, I will defeat them sooner or later. Stumbling block. When others heard this, they were still a little confused, but then someone took the topic off topic. Aren't we also your stumbling blocks? Number 100, we have agreed. Although you have the greatest chance of succeeding in the election, it's not like there's no chance at all. If I pass the second level, I won't show mercy. Exactly, do you need to be merciful? You may have to expect number 100 to be merciful by then. Damn it, if you don't say it so plainly, how can you die? I refuse to accept a single challenge. A one-on-one challenge? I'll do it too. One-on-one challenge with a group of people. Go, 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 go. No one is serious. Ha ha ha. Dot. This second level has finally ended successfully. Although we don't know the finalists, at least there will be no surprises for Wang Ling and the other two roadblocks. The rest will depend on the results of the 18 places. Whose family is it? A group of people joked and laughed with each other, and then dispersed. They were active for a while. Some were walking and chatting casually, while others were sharpening their guns and exercising before the battle. Before they knew it, it was noon. After having dinner together, a group of people returned to the dormitory to rest for a while. Until nearly 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the assembly horn suddenly sounded, and a group of people hurriedly came to the playground to assemble, and consciously arranged into 2 square formations. General Montenegro was already standing in front of the formation just like the previous 2 times. His serious gaze swept over them, making everyone feel a little more stressed. After reading it, General Montenegro took out a list and started shouting, No 001. No 004. No 016. No 019. No 098. No 099. No 100. Arrive. 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 Get out of the queue. As the 20 platoon numbers were called out, 20 elite soldiers, including Wang Ling and 2 blockers, quickly came out and formed a small square formation. After looking at them, General Montenegro put his hands behind his back and praised, Congratulations, you successfully passed the second level after successfully passing the first level. Hearing what he said, many people beamed with joy. Although they know that it will still be difficult to compete for elite combat soldiers in the end, they can overcome 2 levels in a row among a group of elites. This record is enough to make them proud. Among this group of people, mobilization soldiers accounted for the majority, with a total of 15 people. Wang Ling and the 2 blockers did not have specific arms, so statistics were not made. The other 2 places were occupied by anti-aircraft infantry and radiation engineers respectively. Arrive. As for Crazy Ivan, all of them have naturally been eliminated. This is not to say that these 3 types of arms are not good. After all, the focus of each arm is different. The second level of screening and assessment is relatively more conducive to the performance of mobilized soldiers. Naturally, the most important thing is the base number of troops. Who has the largest number of mobilized troops, while Crazy Ivan only has 3? After praising these finalists, General Montenegro turned his attention to the remaining 30 eliminations, and said expressionlessly, As for you, it's a pity that you failed to pass the second level. However, my promise is still valid. You can continue to stay here to watch the battle and witness with your own eyes the emergence of elite combat soldiers.